The app we built displays the full name on the page. Inside the code, we're using two expressions to accomplish this. It would be nice if we could make it into one expression. We could update the data object to hold the full name, but that's sometimes unrealistic. When we retrieve the data from an API, we'll most likely have to combine the data to get the desired result. That isn't too hard to pull off. Inside the template, we can combine this into one expression by removing the curly brackets and adding them. We'll use a string template to accomplish this. This is a valid expression. You're free to call functions or use arithmetic operations from within your expressions. Let's play with this a little more before we view the result. Since the last name property is a string, we can call the function toUppercase to capitalize all the letters in the last name. This function is a native JavaScript function. It's not something specific to Vue. Let's refresh the page. The name gets displayed with the last name in all caps. We get the same result, but with one expression. The result is what we wanted. Well, sort of. The expression has become complex, which can be problematic. You want your expressions to be short and simple. It's recommended you perform complex logic in your JavaScript file. It's not ideal to write complex expressions inside the template. It will happen from time to time, but you will usually want to separate the logic from the view. Luckily, we can use something Vue calls methods. Methods are functions that we can call to perform complex tasks. Let's try creating one. Back in the editor, we'll update the JavaScript file. We're going to add a new property called methods. It'll be set to an object. The methods property is where we can define functions for our application. It works similarly to the data object. Functions defined outside of the Vue instance will be ignored. You won't be able to call them from your template. Vue will only use the functions defined inside the configuration object. Let's create a function that will concatenate the first and last name. The name of our function will be called fullName. Inside this function, we're going to return the code we had in the expression. A couple of things I want to point out. First, to access the data from within the instance, we need to use the this keyword. Technically, this shouldn't work, but Vue will allow you to access the data like this thanks to its proxying mechanism. We don't have to worry about logging the object and finding out where the data is. It's accessible directly from the root. The second thing I want to point out is that I'm using a regular function. If you're familiar with ES6, you may be tempted to use arrow functions. However, this will cause errors in your application. It's not recommended to use arrow functions because of the proxying mechanism in Vue. The this keyword will not work if you were to use an arrow function. If you don't plan on ever using the this keyword in your function, then go right ahead with using an arrow function. Otherwise, always use a regular function. Now the question is, how do we use this function inside our template? It's quite simple. Switch over to the document. All you have to do is call it inside the expression. We'll replace the existing expression with the fullName function. That's it. Let's try viewing the page. If we refresh the page, we will see the full name appear. The template looks a little cleaner because we were able to move the logic outside of the template. To summarize, methods are functions that you can use inside your Vue instance or template. Functions defined in the methods object are proxied by Vue. They're directly accessible in your template. If you would like to use the functions inside the Vue instance, you can access them via the this keyword. Since we're storing the instance in a variable, methods are also accessible through the VM variable. That wraps it up for this lecture. We'll continue in the next one.